It's the Final Word Daily, brought to you by New Brew for brain health and performance. And I'm Daniel Norcross. I'm joined by Ben Jones as we look back on a quite extraordinary test match that took place at Headingley between England and India. It's only just ended. It felt like it went on for years, and I'm now going to ask me to sum up that game in 30 seconds. Why, thank you, Daniel. I wondered if you'd ever ask. Well, what an extraordinary game of cricket that was. It was, at the same time, one of the most humdrum chases of an enormous number of runs you're ever likely to see. India with 5 centuries across the piece and still managed to lose the match. England with a pretty rubbish bowling attack with loads and loads and loads of holes in it, somehow did better than India's mostly rubbish bowling attack, supported by the greatest bowler of all time. England have won, and if they win the toss in the next 4 games, they will choose to chase on every single occasion. And you know what? I wouldn't bet against them winning every time.
It was very, very good, given you had about 20 seconds to prepare your 30 seconds, because I decided I was unable to sum up such a ridiculous test match in 30 seconds. So thank you for saving my blood.
No, it was an absolute pleasure. I don't know how much of what I've just said I really mean, although I think I do mean most of it. But let's start with the statistical oddities, because sometimes numbers can be dry, but sometimes they can really tell a story, and they have told a story. I was speaking to Andy Zaltzman today of Test Match Special fame and the Bugle podcast, and he expressed a certain concern that he wondered if, brilliant though this test match was, it might be a pattern that's going to be repeated. That could be that it's India chasing a large total and winning in the next game, or it could be England again. But it seems almost set in stone the way English pitches have been behaving. The World Test Championship final being a great case in point. All the matches we've seen at the Oval for the last 3 years, 19 tosses won in a row there, and the captain decides to bowl first. Edgbaston 2023, one of the very rare occasions when Stokes did bat first. It felt like he was rather stung by it because he was incapable of getting those last 2 wickets, and that's what got Australia the lead early on in the Ashes series. So what's happening, Jonesy? Has all cricket just changed irrevocably forever, and now it's all about chasing?
Yeah, we live in a, well, I guess presently, but soon to be post-Bazball universe, and everything has changed. I think all the things that you've said about, the conditions and English pitches being flatter and this batch of Duke's balls. You never really use the word batch quite so often as when you're talking about Duke's balls. But I also think you're right. Just to zoom back to the start of what you said, I was having a similar conversation with Zoltz in a train station pub in Leeds last night, and I think that we kind of landed on the idea that basically, whilst this was a remarkable test match, every individual bit in it was actually very predictable. England bowl first, like you say. England don't bowl very well because they haven't got a particularly good attack. Rishabh Pant does silly, ridiculous things, but is also brilliant while he does them. England get themselves into a position where they're going to lose the game, and then they pull off a remarkable chase on the last day at Headingley. Every kind of component of it, actually, when you just take that little bit step back, that little bit of distance, was perfectly kind of plausible going into the game. And I think that's why there was this odd sense in the media centre yesterday, and I'm sure it bled through to viewers and listeners at home, of watching something genuinely historic. The 10th highest chase. England do not chase this many runs. We've done it 6 times, chased 250 plus in the last few years, but it's a very recent tradition. And I think that's almost what it was hard to get hyperbolic about it. I think people were watching it going, yeah, we've got to get these. There's a few nervous people that were going, oh no, but England we always stuff up, we always make a mistake. No, not really. Not recently. They find a way, whether it used to just be Stokes, now it's Stokes has infused into the rest of the side. And yeah, chase 370, sure, we're going to do it. Oh, we lost a couple of wickets. Well, it's fine. Root and a child wicketkeeper. They're probably just going to get over the line pretty nervelessly. So yeah, this is the new reality we live in. It's a very familiar one, but we shouldn't lose track of the fact that it is mad.
I'm glad you mentioned Joe Root there, because his innings was one that didn't really get much of a notice, and I suppose partly because he got 53 not out in what felt like quite a nerveless chase. But it was absolutely crucial, his knock, when England lost that 2 wickets in 2 balls, a marvellous piece of brainlessness by Harry Brook, whose last 2 balls in Test cricket have been hooking a ball down to deep backward square leg on 99 and charging his first ball and getting a little feather down the leg side. Just to make the chase a bit exciting. Then Ben Stokes came in and looked absolutely scratchy. It turned out that he'd been asking Ben Duckett for tips, which is all well and good, but when Ben Duckett is one of the best players of the reverse sweep in the world, he's going to say, reverse sweep it, to a man who didn't really look like he knew how to reverse sweep, which I think possibly added to the nerves. But then in comes Jamie Smith, and alongside him the whole time, Joe Root never looked like getting out at any point. He absolutely judged that chase to perfection, didn't he?
It was what you'd expect from Root. It was classy, it was controlled, it was nerveless, all of these things that we associate alongside his just straightforward brilliance. And yeah, I've got a couple of numbers, as you'd hope. In this innings, Root went past Alistair Cook and he's now top of the list for most runs in successful fourth innings chases for England. And in those successful chases, which it's a dodgy stat. I don't really love it. I feel a bit itchy. Root averages 113, which is the second highest for any Test player ever. If with a decent sample size, the only guy above him is Kane Williamson, who averages 170 in successful chases. He's also quite a good player, but it's one of those things. Again, I feel like English cricket is just a slow. Well, the last 5 years, last 10 years, is a slow process of Joe Root picking off every single statistical quirk, most runs in this, on that, with that. It's all these different variations, and so yet again, another element of this predictable but unpredictable test. Joe Root now has ticked off another one on his bingo card. I think that in these innings, these chases, we associate it with the fireworks of Duckett or the kind of clutch Stokes, all this kind of stuff. The run into the danger of Zach Crawley. I think the danger with Zach Crawley is just kind of bowling, to be honest. But I think seeing Root actually do something quite normal in order to achieve something really, really historic was, it was just a nice little subcurrent to the whole affair.
It was, and alongside Jamie Smith, who looks like he's totally unaware of the fact that he's playing a game of Test cricket in front of lots of people who are watching on. He just looks blissfully unaware of everything that's going on around him, which I suppose is quite handy for quite a large run chase. We've got to talk, though, about how these two sides match up now, because actually after this game, both sides' batting lineups have had pretty much the same kind of success. I know India got 5 centuries, 2 for Rishabh Pant and 3 for spread amongst KL Rahul, Shubman Gill, and someone else.
Jaiswal.
Yashasvi Jaiswal. Yes, I forgot.
I could see the fear in your eyes.
He had a bad test, didn't he? Because he got 100.
and also, like you say, it was about a year and it was about a year and a half ago, because Test cricket it takes an age, so it happened on day one, which is a different era.
So when you look down their line, openers absolutely fine, skipper absolutely fine, smashing wicketkeeper absolutely fine. They've really got no real problems with the bat, except they might have in, I guess, their lineup. So Shardul Thakur at 8. The batting itself collapsed so badly. We know all the numbers, but the one that excites me most is they were 9 for 7, numbers 8 to 11. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And that's how they managed to toss away 2 incredibly powerful positions. But then also, when you look at the England side, very similar. Zach Crawley getting a half century there. Obviously, people will still talk about him and what he's doing in the side, but he's got a half century, which will ensure he's there for the rest of the summer. Ben Duckett is fast becoming everybody's latest exciting toy. Is he the best all-format opener in the world? Well, I don't know, and I think it's a ridiculous conversation to have, but I'm happy for people to have it. Joe Root is obviously Joe Root. Ollie Pope's got 100. Ben Stokes is going nowhere. Harry Brooks should have got 100. Jamie Smith looks fine. So you've got 2 top 7s, albeit that Karen Nair didn't, have a great game, but you're not going to be worrying, if you're India, about whether or not Karen Nair should be playing at 6, because you've got more than enough power. What both sides should be worrying about is their bowling attacks. And we kind of thought before the series that because India had Bumrah, he's the cheat code. There's no one England have got that can match up to him. Ben Stokes was the nearest in this Test match, but he's not. He's not Jasprit Bumrah. And then you've got a sort of a fight out between Bashir and Jadeja. Well, Jadeja's clearly a better spinner than Bashir. Tongue, Wokes, Bryden Cars. Is there anything to choose between them and Prasid Krishna, Shardul Thakur and Mohammad Siraj? Well, we didn't think so. Probably thought that India had the stronger bowling lineup. And yet, I don't know if this game has advanced our understanding in any way, because when a pitch is as flat as this one was, England's chance for their seamers to impress was on that first session, maybe first day, and they really didn't. That then left a whole bunch of bowlers being deeply unimpressive for 5 days. Have we learnt anything?
I don't think we've learned anything about India, because I think the Indian attack is what it is. It's an all-time great, for me, the best fast bowler of all time, accompanied by Mohammad Siraj, who on his day is a hot streak bowler who can tear sides up and bowled well. He was quite unlucky. He had some terrible spells in this game. He had some great spells in this game. It was a game where Mohammad Siraj played. I think what we did see was that Prasid does what he's going to do, which is come in and bang it in. When he tried to bowl Fuller, I thought it didn't look right. It looked floaty because it's not his natural length. I've been prattling on about it for a year now that Akash Deep needs to be playing for India. He's a really, really good bowler, and they didn't pick him in the pink ball test at Adelaide when they should have. They didn't pick him here, and it's twice they've gone to a hit the deck bowler who is not necessarily suited to a pitch like Headingley or a pink ball test in Adelaide. So I think the main thing we've learned or had reaffirmed is that I don't think India know their best attack, and I don't think they know the attributes of their bowlers, the best attributes of their bowlers. I don't think they're setting them up to succeed. You pick Akash Deep, who's a pitched up swing and seam bowler, more seam bowler. They pick him at the Gabba, and he can't bowl full enough because it keeps sailing over the stumps. So he keeps beating the outside edge, but it doesn't take wickets. They don't seem to be using their attack appropriately. Headingley isn't a great venue for spin. We know that it's a tricky pitch, but actually it's been baking hot for a month and a half. And Kuldeep Yadav has it on a string and averages about 12 in Test cricket. And England aren't great against wrist spin. India need to get their heads together and really think about what they want this side to be. What is the identity of this new era? Is it that we're going to blow you away with the bat, or is it with Bumrah and hope? Because that's what it felt like at Headingley. It felt like we're set up that we're going to try and scrabble. We're going to bat well, and then the attack is scrabbling around and waiting for Jasprit to come back and take wickets, which, frankly, given the quality of the bowlers that I think are on the bench, is a really poor call. I've gone on a long time about them. England, I don't think they've got much to change, have they? Like they've got Archer could come back, Atkinson could come back, but I think that's pretty much what we're going to see from England this summer is attritional bowling, where they wait for the opposition to lose it, whether it's the tail or the ball starts moving, but they pounce when they get the opportunity. And I think that's the real skill of this England side is that they're good. They are good at holding, not necessarily being economically, but just not losing their heads. They're happy to concede big runs because they know we can go and chase 350. This isn't the end of the world. And so I think more so than personnel, I think the key for England is maintaining that as their kind of raison d'etre. We doesn't really matter who plays. Not one bowler needs to do all the damage. We're just here to make sure that across the test we don't let them get more than 900 runs, and then we'll chase the rest.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not even sure they're that bothered if it's 900. I mean, this time it was 800 and something, and they had time and wickets to spare. But I absolutely take your point, and I think this is the difference between the two sides. And I don't think it's India's fault at this stage. You've got a new skipper, Shubman Gill, and he's got some wise old heads and some quite wacky old heads as well that are directing traffic almost behind his back. KL Rahul, Rishabh Pant seem to be doing quite a lot of that. Jasprit Bumrah himself, I don't think he's intervening or anything, but he's a man who could easily have been captain and really knows what he's talking about. And Shubman's trying to find his authority in some way. And it was instructive, I thought, just the way the two sides rocked up in the press conferences yesterday, just hearing Gautam Gambhir being quite defensive about his bowling lineup, really wanting to say, they didn't bowl badly, not being able to say positive things, but trying to avoid saying negative things, when the reality before our eyes was that actually England were under the pump so many times in that game, but they still chased the ball to the boundary. They didn't miss field. Yeah, they dropped a couple of catches. Everybody drops catches at Headingley. It's a notoriously difficult ground to take catches on. And yes, India dropped more than was their fair share. And people focus on catches because they think, well, if the catch had been taken, then a wicket would have gone down, and therefore the game would have proceeded in exactly the same way, except the wicket would have gone down earlier. This is actual nonsense. Yes, it's better that you take catches, but taking them doesn't automatically mean that you win the game because of it. What was way more significant to me was Shardul Thakur misfielding, falling over, and then gazing as the ball dribbled away from him and just not getting up for an eternity. And Rishabh Pant shouting at him, "It's okay to miss field, but it's not okay to, sit on your ass for the next 3 seconds." It was things like that. It was looking at the lack of athleticism in the field. There were a lot more twos presented to England than were presented to India. The fielding around the outfield, things like that is what I'm kind of referring to. And it sort of reminded me a little bit of watching England's women play Australia's women. Australia's women charge out onto the field of play, running sideways. Elise Perry's doing the 100 metres in about 11 and a half seconds before the game has even started to run onto the pitch. And they all look absolutely energised and wired. Their heads never drop. And then England's women would sort of saunter out, have a chat. Who's got the Bourbon creams and the hobnobs for later, girls? And they just looked less sharp and less intense. Now, part of the reason for that is that England have had the same captain for 3 years. They've got an absolutely definite culture that everybody is bought into. Stokes never panics, does try different things. Some of them are funky, some of them not so funky. Sometimes, as you say, he just sits in and waits for things to happen. Sometimes he tries to make things happen. But all the time his team look like their heads are in the game. And what would be concerning for me if I was part of that Indian squad is that it didn't feel like in the field all the Indians were switched on all the time. And I guess that's just, is it about creating an identity? And that will come in time.
I think what's concerning from an Indian perspective is that 5 tests is a long time. It is a long time for things to go wrong. And it's early in it's the 5th day out of 25 to be looking lackluster and to be maybe not putting the effort in. I'm not saying that across the board, but in the way that you've framed it with Shardul, that sense of you can't be dispirited on day 5 of a 25-day test series. And I think it's interesting to compare it to the Australia tour just gone, the Border Gavaskar. So in that series, India played a lot of really bad cricket. They were really poor. They should have been out of it, but through a mixture of rain, a couple of clutch performances from Bumrah, they found themselves still just about in it by the 5th test. Things didn't disintegrate. There was something to play for all the way through. But with all the rumblings behind the scenes of what was going on with Ashwin, Rohit was obviously about to retire. We knew that Virat was kind of in the discussion of retiring. This was a team disintegrating, and yet they had something to focus on. This is a very different situation. This is a young team where everyone's kind of fighting for their position. There's not an easy out at the end of this series. There's not an easy one of, oh, well, we'll just retire these guys. It's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. You are India's best team, give or take a few players. And so when you can't sack the players, you start to look upstairs and you start to look at the pressure on the coach. We're a long way from that. But the point is that India need to, over the next 4 tests, pick the right team, which I don't think they did here. Play with the right attitude all the way across the game, which, as you say, I don't think they did here. And I think they need to embrace that identity of we are going to pick 4 brilliant bowlers and we are going to bowl this Bazball side out. We are going to put pressure on them from ball 1 till ball 300. We are going to keep that intensity up. Virat was so good at that, whether it was captain or not, was just like lighting that fire underneath the team. We see all the cartoon nonsense of jumping up and down and getting in bats' faces, but there's clearly an effect that has. And Shubman is too early in his career to be able to do that without it seeming silly. It's performed. It seems over theatrical. However, they need a bit of that, and I don't know where it comes from. Whether it's from Jasprit kind of going, lads, I am absolutely brilliant. Can you please be as good as me for at least a bit? You just need something to just bring it together, because at the moment, this test side, this particular iteration of the Indian test side, does not have a lot to point to in terms of achievement for the last 12 months.
Okay,
and this is a big opportunity.
Before we head to the Hall of Fame, then a couple of key issues, and I'm talking personnel here. I'm really talking Jasprit Bumrah. We keep on hearing, and it was reiterated again by Gautam Gambhir yesterday, that Jasprit is going to play 3 matches. If you're 1-0 down, can you afford not to play him in the second game? Because to go 2-0 down with 2 Jasprits to go is not a happy prospect. I suppose slightly different in that when you're playing against England, you know that the draw is not going to happen because England are going to come at you, barring rain. But no one wants to be 2-0 down in a 5-match series. So if Jasprit does play in the second game, is he really only going to play 1 of the last 3? There's a week's gap before Edgbaston, and then Edgbaston Lords is back-to-back. So he's obviously going to miss one of those. Now, if you're Jasprit Bumrah, you want to play at Lords, don't you? I mean, I don't personally feel the same way about Lords as everybody else does because I'm really chippy and I'm an oval man, and I think Lords is massively overrated. But for everybody else in world cricket, if they get the opportunity to play at Lords, they want to do that. And if you are the greatest bowler of all time, you want to get up on that Lords Honours board. You want to be playing on that biggest stage. If he's playing that game, then he's not playing Edgbaston. Or he's playing Edgbaston and Lords and genuinely then just walking away from the series, which surely isn't going to happen. So how does this work, Ben? And in non-Jasprit Bumrah matches, run me through as easily as you can what India's bowling lineup looks like.
It's not very good, is it? I think in the games where Bumrah doesn't play, they almost need to. He's so transformative for any team, but particularly for this team that doesn't have the depth. I think they almost need to go the other way and strengthen the batting and basically say, look, we know we're not going to really compete in these games. So I think that's when you maybe bring in Nitish Kumar Reddy as the all-rounder and put him at 8 and say we're going to bat all the way down and we're going to basically hope that on any given day the clouds come out, Siraj has a good day, Siraj is the attack leader. We've seen it in Australia back end, the Gabba and the SDG blockout. They didn't have any Bumrah there. They were playing with a second string. They can do excellent things without Bumrah, but it tends to be in very peculiar tests. And I think the way that they can create peculiar tests is by really reinforcing the batting deeper, grinding it out, and hoping that they can fry a few fastball brains and almost take wickets with situations rather than with just pure bowling quality. Because this is a long answer to say there's no one as good as Bumrah, and there's no way that they can go Prasid, Siraj, Akash, or bring in Arshdeep Singh. It doesn't matter. These guys are all about as good as each other. And no iteration of them is going to terrify England as much as one Bumrah. And I think just to go back to what you said, I think in terms of how they use him, just to flip it onto England with regards to Edgbaston, they've got a hell of an opportunity to kill this series straight, like dead, 2-0. India aren't coming back from that. Sides don't come back from 2-0. England couldn't do it in 2023. This India side is not doing it in 2025. And so whether that feeds into them potentially wanting to bring Archer in, we've seen him bowling for Sussex, and he's back playing his first class match. I think it's in 4 years, and he was bowling well, if not super quickly. Whether they think he's ready for that, that's what people are whispering. You bring in Archer to a side that's already doing pretty well. You elevate that attack. India are properly on the ropes, and we're 5 days into a series, and the complexion's rather different than we maybe anticipated.
I've been hearing those whispers too, personally, and it's always ridiculous speculation when we talk about whether someone like Jofra Archer should be playing in the next game. I mean, I hear many of my colleagues saying, well, he's surely undercooked. He's a professional sportsman and he'll know better how his body's rocking up after he's played a game of 4-day cricket. My suspicion is that the smarter move, because there's a week's break and there's a chance for him to play a little bit more cricket in that week, is for him to come in for Lords. And he bowls quite well at Lords, and the slope could certainly help him. And then he'd have had 2 games under his belt. But the thing is, it's not a video game, and putting miles under his belt is just stuff that we hear all the time. But the reality of it is that everybody's body is unique, and he'll know best, and he'll be communicating with the management. I think whichever bowling lineup England put out at Edgbaston, they're going to struggle to take 10 wickets in the 4th innings if they're bowling last, because Edgbaston has been getting easier and easier and easier. And in county championship cricket this year, some of those pitches have been as dead as anything. Surrey played one of the most tedious games of cricket there imaginable earlier this season. So I don't know whether you really want to flog Jofra Archer on that kind of a surface, or whether you actually leave it for Lords, where the advantage of winning the toss is that sides get fewer runs and it gets easier in the first innings. So at least you're bowling for fewer overs in the first innings. That would be what I would reckon. But what we do know is that every other part of the England team will be exactly the same, because loyalty in it. So there's never any real point in speculating about England's team, except insofar as an incredibly quick bowler becomes available at some point. We're going to go to the Hall of Fame in a moment, brought to you by New Brew. It's a supplement that supports brain health and performance. It contains a range of ingredients called nootropics. Taking lots of pills is not pleasant, so this is a single drink that does the job. There are other formulations for different needs, like relaxation or competition. They don't use any plastic packaging in their products. They mix it in a glass from biodegradable materials, and its primary purpose is to increase sharpness, concentration, and memory, something that everybody involved, well, in every walk of life requires, but I find I need increasingly as I now reach the second half of my 6th decade. It's formulated in collaboration with scientists and nutritionists, and I've been drinking the one that helps sleep, and I had a marvellous sleep last night. I can tell you now, even after all the excitement of yesterday's test match, I slept like a baby. But the other thing that can happen to you when you're surrounded by people is that you can pick up little colds, little viruses. Well, the red one, if you catch colds going around, which people do, especially in press boxes, the red one, Nubru Shield. It's like your daily immune armour. Think of it as like a backup for your body's natural defences. Go to Nubru/final word. That's NOOBRU.com/final word to get 15% off. The discount will be applied automatically at checkout. Right, it's time for a break. When we come back, the Hall of Fame. It's Hall of Fame time in association with Nubru. Ben Jones, how does one try to pick the bones out of that? What's going to be your highlight of 5 days of enthralling craziness? Rishabh Pant's got to be high up on your list, I would have thought. But there was also some glorious brainlessness as well. Hard to choose between some of the crazy shots played. Indeed, 2 by Harry Brook alone that we've already mentioned on this show.
I'll go for a crickety one and a non-crickety one. I think the crickety one, the reverse sweep that Ben Duckett played off Jadeja on day 5 in front of square for 6, that I genuinely just swore loudly into my headset and got told off by various people on the crew because they had me latched open. But I think it was an entirely appropriate response because it was one of the most remarkable shots I've ever seen. And it summed up the genius of Ben Duckett in the sense of we've seen Ben Duckett play a reverse sweep before. We know he's pretty damn good at playing the shot. And yet he played it so well. He nailed it, hit it so hard. The sound off the bat was so beautiful that even the most numb supporter who'd been watching it for 5 years still sat up and go, shit, it is unbelievable. So that's going in. The other one is the ongoing will they won't they sexual chemistry between Rishabh Pant and Sunil Gavaskar, which I really enjoyed. The little back and forth with the it felt like watching a rom-com. You think he's going to do he's Sunil wants him to do the front flip. No. I'm doing something new. I'm doing the little eye thing. There's going to be something next week in Edgbaston. We'll see Sunil try and do the eye thing. Rishabh's already got something else, maybe a backflip. I'm intrigued by their relationship, and I know that they've done adverts together and stuff in Australia, in India rather, about their about the stupid. But it must be quite weird to have one of the greatest Indian batsmen of all time, much either saying you're the worst or you are an idiot or you're wonderful. It's classic Bogart call. It's a classic template, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
It sounds very much like my relationship with Alistair Cook on air on Test Match Special. So yes, I know exactly what Rishabh Pant feels like. I was going to do Rishabh Pant because he is box office and he is lovely. Amidst the wonderful performative snarling of Mohammad Siraj, you've then got this cherubic impishness of Pant. And one of the great things to come out of this match for me was a statistic dug out by Andy Zoltzman about Rishabh Pant's strike rate off his second ball. It's distinctly higher than his strike rate off his first ball, his third ball, his fourth ball, his fifth ball, his sixth ball, and so forth, right? And the first time he did it, he came charging down the wicket and smashed Ben Stokes. Stokes just burst into laughter. The second time he did it, I mean, he really connected with that one. The second time he did it, got a really thick edge. It flew over first slip to Chris Wokes. And Chris Wokes, who doesn't really burst into laughter, his face just goes wide and happy because he's such a lovely man. And he looked really fondly at having been edged over slip. And I thought, this is a man who induces both these reactions in his opponents and hopefully now will find a fly slip placed to him for his second ball. Not his third ball, it'll come out for the third ball, but at Edgbaston, if Ben Stokes hasn't placed a fly slip and a very straight long off and long on for his second ball and then change the field again, I will be very disappointed. That's my Hall of Fame. Look, I think we've had a really fun test match to talk about, but oddly, and I don't know what it is, I'm in agreement with you and Zoltz, it was somehow pedestrian whilst being historic and remarkable. Part of the reason for that is not the players. I don't think they're to blame. I think it's the pitches. And I'm going to tell you now, because cricket fans have to be worried about something, especially Test cricket fans. I am a bit worried about these pitches. I don't want to see the same cricket just reproduced at every venue, because the point of a 5-test series is that surfaces are different, aren't they? When you go to India, you get very different surfaces as you go around the country. In Australia, that always used to be the case, the differences between Perth and MCG, Brisbane, Adelaide, etc. I don't want homogeneity. So there's the worry that habitually every Test cricket fan has to have after they've just watched a really fun game of cricket that went deep into the fifth day with an historically high chase. I think that's it from
there are a
me.
few things. I was going to say there are a few things that you have to do after a historic, wonderful 5-day late finish test match. You're obliged to say that Test cricket's the best cricket and T20 shit for some reason. You're obliged to go through some kind of existential ennui of, oh, but how could it be better, and why isn't it better, and as a result, why is this defective? And also, I think you're obliged to have a very, very weird moment where you remember where you were at the start of a test match. 5 days ago, where was I? What was I doing? What was I eating? Who was I with? Was I a different person? How have I changed in this wonderful 5 days of cricket? At least maybe that's me, but
No, no,
it was a brilliant test match, and I would like to see the quality and excitement of the spectacle replicated, if not the exact template.
yes, well, I'm really looking forward to the second test, but won't have to wait that long for dailies, because Australia are playing against the West Indies. Final word daily. I mean, the amount of content that just gets spewed out. Adam Collins, I don't know who he's alongside, actually, to be brutally honest with you, but he's out there in Barbados at the time of recording as they gear up for 3-test series between the West Indies and Australia. Just a reminder, go to noobrew.com/final word. That's noobru.com/final word to get 15% off their magnificent drinks. The discount will be applied automatically at checkout. But from the England-India series and from Ben Jones and myself, Daniel Norcross, until we reconvene a week on Wednesday, whatever that date is. I think it's probably something like the 2nd of July, but dates mean nothing in the cricket season. Until then, it is from both of us, goodbye.